It's about to start, we'll talk about code or whatever we'll talk about today. It's about to start, so please hang tight while I check that everything is okay. Sound, check. Camera, check. Lights, check. How's my hair? Oh, wait, I don't have any hair. Maybe put some pants on and I am good to go. So get ready wherever you are, 'cause this stream is about to start. Get ready wherever you are, 'cause this stream is about to start. Hi, I'm Len Fakinati. Let's write some code together, shall we? What we have on the menu today is this design system. And we are developing a design system for real-time audio effects in Reaper. We are porting the design system from the old version of the library that hasn't been released. We are still developing this. We are figuring out the best way of developing a library for real-time audio effects in Reaper. I think we landed on something that is solid. And here is the old version of the library. There is a comment saying design system here, but there's nothing under this heading. So it means that everything that we had in the design system before has been ported to the new version. This is what it looks like. Let me scroll down. This is what it looks like. It's just a bunch of variables that we define, and this is for font sizes and spacing between elements in the user interface and opacity and colors. Color is a big one. We ported everything that existed in the old version of the library. So now we just have to finish the parts of the design system that we said we would bring into the library. And this was probably like one of the first things that we did when we started working on this library way back 2 or 3 months ago. And we went over all the properties that exist in another project of mine in which I have a design system for CSS. So it's for HTML and for styling web pages. And we are porting that, at least the properties that make sense, porting that into JS effects. And that's what we are going to do. So there is a real chance that we are going to finish the design system in the library today, which is exciting news. So let me copy this, because then I can close the old file. Of course, I'll have to revisit that when we get to other things, all the other features in the existing library that we want to port. And there are interesting things that we want to do with the data structures in there. So there will be some interesting work. It's not just copying and pasting stuff and renaming. It will also be some interesting work in terms of redesigning some of the data structures. But that's not what we are going to do today. All of these, or at least most of these, no, all of these are just constants that we have to bring over. And I did check Tom's videos, so I guess I can remove that to do from the list. Now let's go to the reference that I have. Again, this CSS library that comes with the design system. The design system is actually borrowed from Tailwind. And I make, I don't try to hide that. And then there are properties that do not really make sense in JS effects, like fonts families. Because in JS effects, we have to use fonts that are already installed on the user's computer, which means that we have a single font that I know of that is probably going to be available in every major operating system. And that's Arial. So there is no point in defining different kinds of fonts. We don't have the option of using the monospaced font because it is a bitmap font. Looks too small. Or maybe does it? That's when we start taking tangents. But we are right now just hard coding Arial. But I suppose that we could use the bitmap font, just make it bigger. If we can make it bigger, that might work. So let's investigate this for a moment, because having a mono-spaced font, and especially not using Arial, is definitely something that I'm looking forward to. So, no, not Reaper scripts, JS effects. And if I set this index to 0, I will use the mono-spaced font. So let's try this out in an effect that I have over here for testing stuff. And this is testing mathematical functions, but it does print the results. So we get to see some text. So let's load the effect as it is. Take a look at it. And this is what Arial looks like. It's not terrible, but it's not the best either. Let's see if we can have a second option of font. So when I call this print function, it is setting the font, and it's setting a bunch more things. So what if I just change this from 1 to a 0? Is it gonna change to the mono-spaced font? Yes, but it makes it too small, and it does not respect my font size. Let's play around with this interactively, because maybe there is something that we can do. Experiment time. I'm gonna copy over the code that actually prints stuff to the screen, and I will actually get rid of the printing that we currently do. And I'll just use a primitive to print in white. I don't really need to set the background color. And then I don't really need this either. So the string that I do want to print is called tests. And I don't need any of these other parameters. And then it goes away. I do need to set the X and Y coordinates. So there it is. So if I make this a 0, then it shows up here, but it's very small on a Retina display. But what if I don't pass anything here for a font face and I make it big? No. But if I do pass something here, what if I pass a valid font here? What if I use something like this? Then it changes. Yeah, so I thought it could rescale, right? Because it's a bitmap font, so it will not be crisp, but it could just zoom into the glyph and show that, but it doesn't do that. So Arial is our only option for supporting Retina displays. Let's undo the experiment. So undoing that. Then the only other change is us bringing some properties first to converge. And I guess all of this can be reverted. And then it looks like that again. So in essence, we just brought a bunch of to-dos for ourselves. Let me reload the plugin, making sure that everything is back to a working state. And it is. And all the tests are passing, which is great. So now, we have two ways of doing this. We can either go through the list and bring things over, or we can go over all the things that I have here and re-examine. Maybe we do have things that we want to bring over. I guess I'm going to do both. I'm going to start by just bringing what we already planned way back in a stream like 3 months ago. We selected these properties. So let's bring them over. Then we'll go over everything else, see if we are missing anything, and we'll call the design system done. But there are some properties that I may have brought and forgot to remove from the list. For instance, border width, I'm pretty sure I have it. No. Opacity, I'm pretty sure I have that. That one I do have. Rotation, I don't have. Scale, I don't have. Brightness, I don't have. Contrast, I don't have. Saturation, I don't have. And animations. But now that I look at this, how would I implement rotation, scaling, brightness, contrast, saturation, animations? It's not simply a matter of bringing over some numbers. I would also have to implement a logic to implement something that changes brightness, for instance. Let's start with border width because that's simple. These are the only border widths in our design system. So to bring over border width, all we gotta do is come over here. How about we put it next to border radius? And then we are going to use multi-line cursors to speed things up. So that was easy. And maybe one thing that we could look into is something that we haven't really touched on in the stream yet, but it's actually an interesting thing. It is this GFX dest variable. We haven't really explored that. Yeah, we could look into that because I think that could be a good way of implementing some of these properties. Yeah, I believe that is gonna fly. So let's bring over rotate. Or maybe let's do the thing that I said. Let's review everything that we have in here. So the design system starts here. We have fonts. We just look at fonts and we cannot change the font family. Font sizes and heights should be here. We know it is. Let's go there. Because we are also going to see if we have the right order for everything. And one thing that I did when I was porting this over is I was converting from rems into numbers, to pixels. But we might just not do that, right? How about we don't do that? And we just multiply by 16 over here in JS effects. That could be fun. And then this is no longer relevant. We don't really need to convert like this. It's a simple multiplication. We can do it here. Yeah, let's do that. It's gonna be fun. So all I have to do is come here, select all of these guys, and then no, that's not gonna work. That's not gonna work either because I don't have a rem at the end of this. So I guess I'll just delete as much as makes sense. And then we have a closer parity between the design system in the library that is inspiring all of this and the actual results here in JS Effects. And this is going to make things simpler in the future when we want to migrate and that sort of thing. Oops, one too many. And then let's find all the instances of RAM. And multiply by 16, because one RAM is by default 16 pixels in the browser. And then let's push all of this to the left and put some good old cursors to copy all of that. Then move ourselves up. Go to the end of the line. And paste. Now we do have to take care of these ones. I think that was actually a bug in the implementation, so it's a good thing that we are coming here, because the ones that were RAMs were multiplied by 16, and that's the number that we used to see here. But there are these 4 instances where it is relative. If you specify a line height in CSS without a dimension, it's relative to that. So I guess what we want in these 4 cases is to copy. So if you have a 1 at the end just like that, what we want is to go above and copy what was there. And that is going to be true to the intent of this. Now taking a quick glance, it seems like everything is all right. And you know what? Instead of actually having a multiplication by 16, we could have a constant here called rem. And then it's more declarative this way. It's no big deal, but I think I prefer it. So yeah, a one-to-one correspondence between the two, to some extent. Then the font weight is not something that we have exact control over. In CSS, you have 9 weights to choose from in old style fonts, I guess. No, old style is something that has meaning in typography. So I guess in your good old usual fonts, there are 9 weights. In very weight fonts, you can specify more weights in between. In any case, in JS Effects, we are limited to what JS Effects offer, which is just regular bold italic or bold italic. So I'm calling this a style, though in the design system we don't even have a notion of style, because in CSS you don't really have to have a variable to say that something is italic. You can just say italic, font style italic. So next we have letter spacing. That's not a concept that exists in JS Effects. We could do it by printing each character. That could be a fun little function to write, and it's particularly useful for all caps. So let's give this a try. So instead of printing the tests, I am going to print just hello. So this is what it looks like, and it kind of looks okay, but ideally when you're using uppercase letters, you're supposed to leave a little bit of space between the letters, make them more readable. And it could be a fun little... Come on, we have a spammer in the chat. Let me get rid of that person. Report, unwanted commercial content or spam, and goodbye. Right, so we could implement something that prints each letter in turn. That could be fun. So to pull this off, let's start prototyping by going to print. And in JSFX, there is a way for me to get the length of this string. It's called strlen. And we'll need a local variable for this, so string length is equal to strlen of string. So this is the number of characters in this string. Now we can loop over this length. Well, in that case, we may just do it directly without a local variable. I'm going to leave the local variables for the end when we are done with this. So we loop over the variable and we say gfx x is equal to x, and we are looping over the string. So we need to get one character from the string, which is something that we can do by this is going to get a number. Char, short, inch, float, double, no. To get one character. Compare. I guess I need to use this. Oh, this is going to copy everything from that point onwards, and so I want this. So I'll call the string that I want to pass is this one, and should I have this character here? Is this something that exists? That's a good question, because I suppose, since this is going to be a string, so let's see, if we rename all of this to have that character, to say that this is a string, a named string, then we come back here and, okay, all of that still makes sense. Let's reload the plugin and see what happens. Should work. Oh no. Okay, so a string can only be in instance or globals. So we don't define strings this way. Okay. So coming back here, my string is that, and oh, my source string is this string. The target string is probably what I want to call the character. the offset, well, I need to calculate the offset. So the offset is going to start at 0, and the offset is going to be plus equals 1. And then GFX X, I will need to update at some other point. Okay. And then the maximum length is 1. I just want one character out of this. So now I have the character that I want to print. Probably want to move all of this code below because that's the part where I actually print stuff. And then I don't need this line, it's repeated. Okay. So now I have the character that I want to print. Let's measure its size. There is a function called has to do with strings. Okay. So this is essentially what I want. Just want to draw the string. Which in this case is character. Oh, so we have a new person on the chat. Let me pop out the chat so you can see. Oh, and then the spammer is back. I can report the spammer again. Go to channel pin, report, unwanted report, and the person is going away. Okay, so I don't really know how to pronounce your name. I'm very sorry. Secret, maybe? Hello, it's great to have you here. And the purpose of the design system is to help other developers of JS effects, or even to help me as I develop my JS effects, develop better looking effects. And by that, I don't mean that it will necessarily be something that looks like a piece of analog gear. It's just a selection of a color palette, some sizes that work relatively well, and font sizes, and okay, secret squirrel. Hello, great to have you here, and thanks for helping me out. So the purpose is for people who are developing JS effects and want to have more than just sliders, and they are not necessarily intending to recreate an analog piece of gear kind of situation, a faceplate that looks like that. Because if you want that, the best way to do it is with images. You go to an image editor and you create a faceplate and you load that as an image in JS effects. But if you're trying to design something that is functional and modern and that looks something like, well, I guess this kind of interface that I have over here, like what I'm providing in the design system is like this space over here, this space over there, and then this color and this color and this color and that sort of thing. So when you're working and you're designing your user interface, you don't have to make all these decisions. And that's the point. And since I'm doing that, I am also trying to extend the functionality that exists in JS effects. The JS effects functionalities for drawing is very bare bones. So I am adding things like right now, I am trying to add the concept of letter spacing, which doesn't exist, but we can try to recreate it from first principles, and that's what we're doing. So we are extending the functionality even further. That's what we are up to. So can you tell me about your background? What are you up to? Do you already know JS effects, or are you new to JS effects? That sort of thing. Let me know here in the chat. I'll be reading. So this is going to draw the letter and it's going to update these coordinates. But I do want the letter spacing. Let's start by doing this and see if it writes something on the screen. it's weird that, sorry, it is drawing something, but not the first letter. So, oh yeah, absolutely, because I forgot to say that the loop starts at -1. So now it draws the same as it did before. But let's do the line spacing then. So gfx plus equal, and I want to add that little bit of space. Let's add 10 pixels to begin with, just to see if the effect is working. There you go. So, secret squirrel. Imagining you as a squirrel now, sorry. This is what we are up to. We are creating new functionality for JS effects. Okay, I'm just learning about all this stuff. I'm currently trying to find a remote MIDI controller to control DAWs. For instance, I need a way to record Nuendo VST Connect. Interesting. I'm afraid I don't know what Nuendo VST Connect even is. And Just Beeb, hello, says I've got scammed over a keyboard in a country with 27% sales tax. Sorry to hear that. Trying to find a remote MIDI controller to control DAWs. That's interesting. In Reaper, I don't know about Nuendo. Have never used it. And I should say that this channel, what we are doing today, is mostly developing all these tools. It's not necessarily showing how to use them. Tomorrow, or maybe on Thursday, I haven't really got word from Aria yet, but every week on usually Wednesdays, maybe this week it's going to be on Thursday, we do a stream where we talk about music production. So we go over things like how to use MIDI controllers, control DAWs, and that kind of thing. But that's not what we are doing today. Today we are developing tools for musicians. In any case, in Reaper, there is a feature that may be interesting to you. It's called first of all, you can use OSC and you can use MIDI controllers, right? Sure. But you can also use a web interface. So you start a server from within Reaper. You go to the Reaper settings over here and you add, maybe you already know about this, but you can add a browser interface, apply settings, okay. And yeah, it complains the first time, but I think it's working. So now we can go to this address in the browser. And what was it? 192.168, then 1 and 185, and the port is 8080. And oh, did I get it wrong? It's trying to autocomplete with something else. Let's see these two side by side real quick. If you get out of the way. HTTP 192.168.1.185.80.80. So maybe I'll need to add it and retry this. Oh, it should be there. So this is what it looks like. And you can access this from a phone, from a tablet, from any device that is in the same network. And it is going to control Reaper. So check this out. I'll put here Reaper on one side. Imagine that this is a phone on your pocket and you can play and pause and record. And there are some other pages like this that do a lot more. This is relatively bare bones, but even that, if you are in the booth recording some voiceover or recording drums or whatever you're doing, you may not want to have a computer next to you, but you can have your phone. So that's handy. So maybe that's something that you find interesting, and maybe Nuendo has something like that. Oh, okay, so yeah, I was mentioning how I didn't get word from Aria, so Aria is here. Hello, Aria. And we are going to do it on Thursday this week. We're going to talk about using DOS and that sort of stuff on Thursday. Aiming to control via mobile device over network. There is so much on the screen on Windows, so being able to control on the control room another via remote. So yeah, that's exactly what Reaper allows you to do, but it's a Reaper specific thing. I don't know about Nuendo. I'll remove this server. I don't really need that right now. And it's fun that you can even develop your own website using that technology I just showed. I developed some, and it's relatively straightforward, the way that you communicate with Reaper, and you can even abuse that to do other things that are not necessarily from the browser. So there are... Okay, I'll take this tangent. So you know how in Reaper or in any other DAW, you can use keyboard shortcuts to perform actions, like start recording, for instance. But what you cannot do is start recording if you have the focus on any other application. So if I am here on the browser and I want to hit a keyboard shortcut and start recording in Reaper, that's impossible. But what is possible is to write any kind of script that listens for global keyboard shortcuts that will be available in any application. So for instance, on macOS, you can use Hammerspoon. On Windows, you can use Auto Hotkey. And on Linux, you can probably use some customized GNOME or whatever desktop manager you're using. So you can listen for keyboard shortcuts and you can send HTTP requests. So you can pretend that you are a browser and send an HTTP request from a script that is listening for a global keyboard shortcut and trigger something in Reaper. Super cool. And Aria, it's fine. We are going to do it on Thursday. The upside is that I've got my first US layout keyboard, so now I don't have to press 2 to 4 keys every time I want to use a special character for coding. I can write in English faster. Yeah, absolutely. I don't live in an English-speaking country, but I can only use English keyboards, US keyboards. I got so used to them. It's the only way to live because all the keyboard shortcuts, or most keyboard shortcuts, tend to be designed for this keyboard, and it has the characters you need for most programming languages because guess what? The programming language designers had these keyboards. So yeah, it's absolutely essential. And even for typing the kinds of characters that I need for the local language, I got used to the 3 or 4 letters that I have to press to get it. So it's much, much better. Yeah, so if you want to use MIDI or what do people call this, OSC or OSC, you can do that with any DAW mostly, but the web thing is specific to Reaper. And thank you for your videos. Thank you for saying that. Okay, so that's what you're aiming for. And Steinberg doesn't have Android devices, only iOS. So it seems like the developers of Nuendo have an app that is specific to their DAW, which is something similar to what Logic does, right? There is Logic Remote, and I believe it's actually using OSC under the hood, so it may work with other DAWs, but it's definitely made for Logic. And it's unfortunately not surprising that they only have iOS, because for most things related to audio processing, iOS has a better model, but this is not even handling audio, right? It's just controlling the DAW. But even then, people tend to prefer iOS when talking about media production. It's an operating system that lends itself better because of some fundamental things about the way that things work in iOS. And VSC Connect is within Cubase and Nuendo, designed to record a client from a remote location. I see. Okay. I mean, worst comes to worst, it is technically possible to figure out what the iOS app is doing. It's communicating with your computer somehow over the network, over a network protocol. So you could figure out how that connection is happening and then recreate that using Android, or recreate that in an Android app and create it yourself. But that sounds like a lot of work. Also, I'd love to share your content on Twitter and tag your content. That's very nice of you. I do have a Twitter profile. It is like this, but I'm not active on Twitter. So I have never tweeted, but I do have an account there because I once had to complain about some plane tickets, and it seemed like Twitter was the only way I could get the attention of the company that was selling the tickets. So it is here, and you can tag me, and that's very nice of you. But I should say that I'm not active. I don't monitor DMs or anything on Twitter, but I am there. So where were we? We have a way to draw strings with spaces between letters, and that is something that Reaper doesn't know how to do, but now we can do it, which is very nice. So because this works, we should bring in the notion of letter spacing, and it's going to be right after this. And these are the letter spaces that we recommend, right? So the point, you were asking, what is the point of the design system? What is it for? It's just a pre-selection of letter spaces that are going to work well, but you're always free to use something else if you want. So this is just a pre-selection. And when I'm designing stuff, I tend to stick to the pre-selection because I'm no designer. So I just use what other people decided for me. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this design system was borrowed from Tailwind CSS. So over here, GFX X retina times this value, and then the AMs in the end are not REMs. So that's something to keep in mind. Yeah, so these AMs are related to not an absolute value like 16. They're related to this choice of font size. So I'm not going to multiply by X retina, and I'm not going to multiply by any value. So this is going to be something related to the font size. So now let's change print to take that in account. So after the style, we are going to have letter spacing. Oh, and check this out. I forgot to put this part here. We'll get around to that. So letter spacing. And this is going to change how we actually invoke the function. So right after the style, which in this case is regular, I don't need anything bold or anything. So that's when I am going to put the widest setting. So we can definitely tell that the thing is working. And then over here, instead of the number 10, I'll have a letter spacing. So if this is like the relative one, I'm going to call this the absolute one. Or maybe in pixels, something like that. Or maybe I'll just change the variable. So I need to multiply by the font size. And the font size is already given to me in pixels. So now I should have something that I can use over here. And I'm computing this before I get into the loop. Yes, I'm going to compute it here because it's sort of part of the parameters. So now this is relative to the font size. And then after this, it's actually absolute. And then I add that. And yeah, let's check this out. Doesn't seem to be working, or the spacing is too small. Actually, it seems to be working and the spacing is just too small. Right now we have the widest. Let's change from widest to tighter. And then we should see the hello just becoming a lot smaller. And we do. So I think that this is actually maybe good enough. Maybe we could have something a little bit bigger, but I'll just stick with what they gave me in terms of the design system. Well, hanging there. Maybe I do need to multiply by X retina after all. No, otherwise it's going to be proportional to the square of X retina, and that's not what I want. Great, so we implemented something that I wasn't expecting, but it's fun. So I'll bring this back. And then every time you want to print, you have to tell me what is the letter spacing that you want to use. And do we have an option for no? Yes, normal. So if you give me normal, I'm going to have a special case in the implementation. If you give me normal, it doesn't really matter that I multiplied here because normal is 0. So if I get 0, then as a special case, I will not print letter by letter. I will do this instead. So can put this here because I'm going to style it like this. And otherwise, I will do that. Okay, let's see all the variables that we are leaking to the global context. So I'll do full compile reset here, and we do have offset. And that seems to be it, actually, which is awkward. I was expecting one more variable to be leaking. Oh, and then look at that. We are printing that long string with letter spacing. If I go back to normal, then one indication that this actually worked is that we should see the new lines, because the new lines are not going to be respected by this thing over here, or actually this thing over here. So the new lines are not going to be respected by this, but they are going to be respected by that. So if we got things right, then we should see new lines. And we do. So and what? So yeah, there is still this we have to figure out. So what are all the local variables that we are defining? We are defining letter spacing, but that is actually a parameter that we are modifying. Then these are special variables in JS effects. Then this is the same as before. We're just using the parameters. Then width and height are parameters. Then offset is a local variable. So let's put it here. And I was expecting the character to also be a local variable, but it doesn't seem to be. So maybe I shouldn't be using it like this. And then I expect the thing to still work, but I expect character to be leaking into the global context. Let's make this widest again, just so that we are running that case. And then character is leaking into the global context. So that seems more correct. And that is it. That is the only offset and character are the only local variables I'm defining. So now I can return this to, was it normal or regular? It was normal. And then we can review the changes, because I think we got this figured out. So letter spacing. Yeah, in the bag. And let's see the changes over here, just this one. All of that makes sense. Fun stuff. By the way, since I have your attention and you all are here with me in the chat, including this fellow that I need to report, but while I have your attention, There's something that I'm launching, but I haven't really talked about it that much. Starting next week, so starting on probably Tuesday next week, we are launching this study group for C++ and digital signal processing in C++. And we are probably going to cover JUICE, which is the framework that most people use to develop real-time audio effects and any other kind of application that deals with audio in C++. So we'll learn the language. It will be suitable for beginners if you have little to no programming experience. C++ is maybe not the best language to learn as the first language, but it is popular. You will find a lot of material to learn from. So it's something that you may want to consider. So all you got to do to join us and be part of the group is go to the Discord for the unofficial user group for Reaper on Discord. And I'll grab a link and I will invite you all, though it's open for anyone, but I'll invite you anyway. Copy, paste on the chat. So you can follow this link on the chat and you can join us there. And we are going to talk about this study group, and we also talk about other things that have happened or are going to happen here on the stream. And then you can be part of the club. Right, so we were at letter spacing and then width. And so this is something special to JS effects, text alignment. Then text overflow, also special to JS effects. And then we get to width. So I guess I'm going to do the little migration again to use ramps. And this last one, it seems like I converted some other way. Forget how I did it. I probably went to my own website, which as far as I remember is using this, and I measured. Yeah. So that's that. So I'm not gonna bother with this last one because it is correct. Or maybe not. I can see what is 546 divided by 65. It's 8.4, so yeah, I can have a variable for that. 8.4. And then this is going to be 65 times character. Oh, Bo is here. Hello, Bo. Thanks for being here. It's always nice to have you. So let's investigate if we got all these conversions and numbers right. If I delete the plugin from here and add it again, I should see the values that actually are part of the design system over here. And in particular, I'm looking for width, and the prose is supposed to be 576 times 2 because of retina display. That doesn't look right. Or maybe it was 546, wasn't it? So that looks right. I think I got it right. Then space. It's pretty much the same exercise. Let's do it. Is there any exception? Yes, there are pixels, so I have to pay attention to that. let's go over the exercise of how to play around with multiple cursors in Visual Studio Code. Hold Option and Shift and click, and then you get a column. Then you can hold Option and Shift and right arrow, and that selects words, which is important because some of these are 1 digit, some are multiple digits. That doesn't really work in this case because there are these different divisions. So next attempt, select this, which appears on every line, and hold Command, Shift, and L. It's going to select all of them. And then we can get rid of everything to the left by holding Command, Shift, Left, and delete. Then all the instances of RAM, I'm going to select the word RAM, Command, Shift, and L, times _ RAM. Then let's find the pixel ones, because pixels are already the unit of measurement, so we can just get rid of them. And then this is what we want to copy over, but we are not going to just select everything and copy. We are going to be smart about it. So another column selector, and then cut. But the cool thing about having a column selector like that, I don't know if this works across buffers. I'm about to learn something. The cool thing about doing it that way is that if I have a column selector with exactly the same number of lines, I can paste, and it's going to paste accordingly. Instead of just pasting one block of text, it's going to paste each line on each line like this. Oh, and I forgot the multiplication sign in the beginning. So even things like Command Z still work, which is sort of cute. And then we did it. Then border width is, well, we did this today, so we know that that one is right. Border radius is based on rams and percentages and all of that, so we need to revisit this. Let's see if you all learned. So Option and Shift for column. Then in this case, the circle doesn't even make sense. We can get rid of that. Command, Shift, and K to get rid of a line. But the full one does make sense. We just get rid of that, and it's actually fine already. It's not using rams, so no need to change. Same for the first one. Then let's select everything. And maybe let's do the trick where we select the column in the middle. And then select the RAM. Let's put the semicolon at the end, select the whole line, cut, and then go to all these ones. And then just like that, it's okay. All right. Then the notion of, oh, so Secret Squirrel is on Discord. Awesome. It's going to be a lot of fun. So outline is a notion that exists on browsers, like when you have a field where you can type something. This blue thing is not a border, it's an outline. And the outline property is actually something that brings together the width and the appearance and the color. We already have the notion of borders. We don't even have a notion of dotted borders, which is not something that I'm particularly interested in implementing. So suppose I can add to the list of things to do for the design system in a distant future. Outline, dotted borders. It may come in handy depending on what you're doing, but the truth is that you don't even have text boxes where you can type in JSFX. It's actually one of the things that people asked for in REQ, and Justin Johnson has to answer like 5 times a day. No, it's not possible. It's a limitation of JSFX. So it's a limitation of JSFX. So maybe outline is not terribly useful, and dotted borders are something that I don't really like myself. So there you go. We're going to prescribe that this is just something that doesn't exist. We're not even going to leave a to-do for the distant future. And it is time for me to wrap up. So tomorrow I will finish this. Promise. And on Thursday, we will talk about orchestration with ARIA. That's what we are up to. So thank you all very much for being here. Thank you for joining the community on Discord. It's going to be a lot of fun starting next week, this C++ study group. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for supporting me. And I will see you again tomorrow to continue this that we are doing here. This very thing. See you. Bye.